The coffee pot shattered against the tile, and the diner went silent. Elena Park's hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the effort of holding back 8 years of pain compressed into one burning moment. The man in the Italian suit had just told her to cover her scars because people were eating. And in the corner booth, a gray-haired Marine's cup rattled against its saucer, the sound of a trigger being pulled. Before we dive in, if you believe respect is earned through sacrifice, not appearance, hit that subscribe button. Stay with me until the very end of this story, because what happens in this diner will change an entire town. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far Elena's story travels. Now let's go back to where it started. The rain came down like nails on the roof of Harborview Diner, that particular November rain that smells like salt and rust and the end of things. It was 7:20 on a Tuesday morning, and the breakfast rush was doing what it always did, filling booths, rattling silverware, turning strangers into a temporary community bound by bacon grease and burnt coffee. Elena Park moved through it like water coffee pot in one hand, order pad in the other, her body remembering the rhythm even when her mind drifted. Booth 3 needed a warm-up. Table 6 was waiting on wheat toast. The couple by the window wanted separate checks, which meant one of them was about to get dumped, and Elena had seen enough endings to recognize the shape of one coming. She'd been working at the diner for 7 months. 7 months since she'd stopped being Staff Sergeant Elena Park, 101st Airborne Division combat medic with 2 deployments and a chest full of medals she kept in a shoebox under her bed. 7 months since she'd traded the weight of a field pack for the weight of a coffee pot. The sound of mortars for the sound of the ice machine cycling on the screaming of wounded men for the polite complaints of customers who wanted their eggs over medium, not over easy. The scars on her forearms caught the fluorescent light as she poured. They always did. Burn scars, the kind that start as 3rd degree and end as permanent, the kind that tell a story whether you want them to or not. They ran from her wrists to her elbows in patterns that looked almost deliberate, like someone had painted her skin with fire and let it dry. She'd stopped wearing long sleeves 3 weeks ago, not because she'd stopped caring what people thought, but because she'd started caring more about suffocating. "Top me off, sweetheart." Elena turned. Booth 7. The man was mid-50s, expensive suit hair that cost more than her weekly paycheck. He'd blown in an hour ago with 2 other business types, all of them loud in that particular way, of men who've never been told to shut up. His name tag said Trevor Hale Regional Sales Director, and he wore it like a medal. Coming right up. Elena moved to his table pot, already tilted. Trevor was mid-sentence explaining something to his companions about market penetration and 4th quarter projections, words that sounded important and meant nothing. He didn't look up as Elena poured. Didn't say thank you. Didn't acknowledge her existence until his eyes snagged on the scars. Then he stopped talking. The silence spread like spilled coffee soaking into the surrounding tables. His companions noticed his stare, followed his gaze, saw what he saw. Elena knew that look, had catalogued it across 100 interactions. The double take, the quick assessment, the decision about whether to say something or pretend they hadn't seen. Trevor chose option 3. Jesus Christ. He said it loud enough to turn heads. You might want to cover those up. People are trying to eat here. The diner didn't go silent all at once. It happened in stages. First booth 7, then the surrounding tables as people registered what had been said and tried to figure out if they'd heard it right. Then the counter where 2 truckers stopped mid-bite. Then the kitchen where the line cook's spatula hung suspended over the griddle. Elena felt the heat rise in her chest, that old familiar burn that had nothing to do with fire and everything to do with rage compressed into a space too small to contain it. "Excuse me," her voice came out steady. 8 years in the army had taught her how to do that, how to keep the shake out of your words, even when your hands wanted to form fists. Trevor took a long sip of his coffee, playing to his audience now. "Look, I'm not trying to be rude. Then don't be." "But that's pretty unprofessional. I mean, I get it, accidents happen, but there's makeup for that kind of thing. Cover up. You're in the service industry, honey. Presentation matters." One of his companions shifted uncomfortably. The other one, younger, eager to impress, laughed just a short bark of sound that said, "I'm with this guy." Elena's hand tightened on the coffee pot. The heat had reached her face, now crawling up her neck in blotches she knew were visible. She could feel the eyes of every customer in the diner, feel them making the same calculation Trevor had made, scarred, damaged something to comment on. "They're burn scars." She said it flat, no inflection. "I was in a vehicle fire. Got 2 men out." Trevor waved a hand, dismissive. "I'm sure there's a story there, but my point stands. You're serving food. Some things are just unsightly. I'm not trying to be the bad guy here, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." No one contradicted him. That was the part that burned worse than the scars. The silence. The way people looked down at their plates or suddenly became very interested in their phones. The way the couple by the window turned to face the rain. The way the trucker at the counter found something fascinating about his hash browns. Elena opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I'll get the manager." Trevor nodded, satisfied. "That would be appropriate." Elena turned and walked toward the kitchen. Each step measured her spine straight in that particular way that people who've served recognize immediately. The coffee pot felt like it weighed 40 pounds. Her hands were shaking now, really shaking, and there was a sound in her ears like white noise, like the sound of the Humvee burning, like the sound of Corporal Jensen screaming that he couldn't feel his legs. She pushed through the swinging door into the kitchen and set the coffee pot down on the stainless steel counter with a crack that made Luis, the line cook, jump. "Elena." "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Her hands were on the counter, palms down, and she was trying to remember how to breathe like they'd taught her in the VA classes. 4 counts in. Hold. 4 counts out. The burn scars were bright pink against the steel, screaming their presence, refusing to be invisible. Luis, 60 years old, and built like a fire hydrant, moved closer. "What happened?" "Nothing. Guy's an asshole. Where's May?" "Office. You want me to?" "No, just, I need a minute." But she didn't have a minute because May Collins, manager and owner of Harborview Diner, came through the door with her customer service face already assembled, all sympathetic eyebrows and concerned mouth. "Elena, honey, what's going on? Table 7 said there was an issue." Elena turned, looked at May. May, who'd hired her when nobody else would because the gaps in her resume screamed veteran, and probably has issues and might freak out when the pressure cooker goes off. May, who'd let her take 15-minute breaks when the lunch rush got too loud and she needed to stand in the walk-in cooler and remember how to be a person. "Guy said my scars are unprofessional, said I should cover them up." May's face did something complicated. Elena watched her make the calculation, saw the math happen behind her eyes, veteran employee versus paying customer, right thing to do, versus business as usual, compassion versus convenience. May's face settled into a mask of apologetic concern. "Okay, let me go talk to him." "May, stay here. Take 5. I'll handle this." May went back through the swinging door, and Elena stood in the kitchen with Luis watching her and the dishwasher pretending he wasn't listening, and the sound of the rain on the roof, like machine gun fire, like mortars, like the sound of her own heartbeat, trying to punch through her ribs. Through the round window in the kitchen door, she could see May approaching table 7. Could see Trevor's face animated, explaining. Could see May nodding. Could see May's hand come up to her chest in that universal gesture of, "I understand, I'm sorry, we'll make this right." And then May turned toward the kitchen with an expression Elena knew too well. The expression that said, "Please don't make this harder than it has to be." Elena looked down at her hands, at the scars, at the permanent record of the day she'd pulled Private First Class David Martinez and Specialist Sarah Chen out of a burning Humvee while the fuel tank cooked off and her sleeves melted into her skin. At the price of 2 lives that weren't hers. She'd been 26 years old. It had been 114 degrees in Kandahar province. The IED had taken out the front axle and ruptured the fuel line, and Elena had been in the trail vehicle, and she'd run forward while everyone else took cover, because that's what medics do. That's what you sign up for. Martinez had made it. Chen had made it. Elena had spent 3 months at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, and another 6 in physical therapy, learning how to use her hands again. The Army had given her a Bronze Star with Valor device, and a medical retirement, and a hearty handshake, and a speech about sacrifice and service. Nobody had mentioned that the sacrifice kept happening, that it happened every time someone stared, every time someone asked what happened like they were asking about the weather, every time someone like Trevor Hale looked at her scars and saw damage instead of courage. May pushed back through the kitchen door. Her face was still in apology mode, but now it was directed at Elena. "Okay, so he's pretty upset." Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. Upset? He says he complained politely and you got defensive. He's asking for you to be removed from his section. He told me to cover my scars because people are eating. May's hands fluttered that nervous gesture she made when she was trying to smooth something over. "I know, honey, and that wasn't kind. But he's a customer, and we need to keep things professional. Can you just maybe switch sections with Jenny? Take the counter for a while." Elena stared at her. "You're serious?" "It's just for this morning, just until he leaves. Then everything goes back to normal. He told me I was unsightly May. He said I should wear makeup to cover burns that go 6 inches up my arms." May's face crumpled a little. "I know. And I'll talk to him about his tone. But we can't afford to lose customers right now. And if he complains to corporate, we have Yelp to think about, and corporate." Elena heard her own voice go flat. "Yelp. Please don't make this a thing, Elena. I'm trying to protect your job here. By asking me to hide. By asking you to be flexible." May's voice went firm. "Look, I get it. You've been through hell. But this is a business and sometimes we have to make accommodations for difficult customers. That's just reality." Reality. Elena knew reality. Reality was burning metal and screaming men and your hands inside someone's abdominal cavity trying to pinch off a bleeder while rounds cracked overhead. Reality was a Bronze Star and a retirement check that didn't cover rent, and a diner job that required you to smile and say coming right up while someone told you that you were too damaged to be seen. "Fine." Elena untied her apron. "I'll make it easy for you." "Elena." "I quit." May's eyes went wide. "No, wait, I didn't say. You didn't have to." Elena hung the apron on its hook, each movement deliberate. "You chose him. That's fine. That's your business. But I'm not hiding. Not anymore." She walked past May through the kitchen door into the diner where 40 people were pretending they weren't watching while absolutely watching. Her coat was on the rack by the back door. Her purse was in the cubby. She just needed to get to them, and then she could leave and sit in her car and fall apart in private like a professional. She made it 3 steps. "Leaving already?" Trevor's voice loud and satisfied. "That's probably for the best. No hard feelings, sweetheart. Just business." Elena stopped, turned, looked at him across 15 feet of diner floor and 8 years of holding it together. "You know what these scars are?" Her voice carried. Everyone heard it. "They're from pulling 2 soldiers out of a burning vehicle while the fuel tank was cooking off. I was a combat medic, 101st Airborne. I spent 8 years keeping people alive in places you couldn't find on a map. These scars are what courage looks like when it has to walk through fire." Trevor smirked. "That's very dramatic. Doesn't change the fact that they're hard to look at." "Then don't look." "I paid for a meal in a clean establishment, and I paid for this country with my hands." Elena's voice cracked. She felt tears coming and hated them, hated that this man could do this to her, could make her break in public. "So you can finish your eggs and your coffee, and you can leave me the hell alone." She turned toward the door. Her vision was blurring. The coat rack was right there. 3 more steps. 2. 1. And then a coffee cup rattled against a saucer, the sound sharp in the silence. In the corner booth, the old man was standing up. Elena had seen him before. He was a regular. Came in every Tuesday and Thursday, always ordered the same thing: black coffee, dry wheat toast, 2 eggs over easy. Always left exact change. Always sat in the same booth. Always wore a faded USMC cap that had seen better decades. He was standing now slowly, like standing hurt. He was tall, 6'2", maybe, but stooped with age and weight and something else. His hands were shaking, not the tremor of old age, but something sharper, something familiar. He looked at Elena, then at Trevor, then back at Elena, and then he started walking toward table 7, and the entire diner held its breath. His voice when it came was quiet, but it carried the way voices carry when they've learned to give orders under fire. "You're talking to a soldier." Trevor looked up, annoyed. "Excuse me, this is a private—" "No." The old man stopped at the edge of the table 7. Up close, Elena could see the details, the weathered skin, the white mustache, the eyes that had seen things and remembered them. "This is a public place. And you just disrespected a veteran in front of witnesses, so now it's my business." Trevor's face went red. "Look, Grandpa, I don't know what you think you heard. I heard you tell a combat medic that her scars are unsightly." The old man's voice stayed level. "I heard you tell her to cover up the evidence of her service. I heard you do that in a room full of people who should have said something and didn't." He reached into his pocket and pulled something out. Set it on the table with a soft click. A challenge coin. Marine Corps. The eagle globe and anchor caught the light. "Walter Reyes, Master Sergeant retired. USMC. I did 3 tours in Vietnam and 1 in Desert Storm, and I've seen what fire does to people. I've held men while they died from burns. I've watched medics work miracles with nothing but gauze and morphine and guts." His hand was flat on the table next to the coin. "So when you tell this woman to hide her scars, you're not talking to a waitress. You're talking to someone who earned those marks, pulling your people out of hell." Trevor's mouth opened, closed. His companions had gone very still. I'm not trying to disrespect the military." "Too late." Walter's voice went cold. "You already did, and everyone here heard it." The diner was absolutely silent now. Even the kitchen had gone quiet. Elena stood frozen by the coat rack, tears on her face, watching this old Marine fight a battle she'd thought she'd have to fight alone. Trevor pushed back from the table, his chair scraping loud against the linoleum. "This is absurd. I'm a paying customer." Then pay and leave. Walter didn't move. Because you don't get to eat here and insult the people who gave you the freedom to complain. It's a free country, old man. Because of people like her. Walter pointed at Elena without looking away from Trevor. People who signed the blank check, who put their bodies between you and the bullets, who came home with scars and nightmares and damage you can't see, but decided to judge the parts you can. Trevor's face had gone from red to white. One of his companions was already standing, pulling out his wallet. The other one was staring at the table like he could disappear into it. We're leaving. Trevor threw 2 20s on the table. This is harassment. No. Walter's voice dropped to something just above a whisper, and somehow that was more terrifying than shouting. Harassment is what you did to her. This is consequences. Trevor grabbed his coat. His companions followed. They moved toward the door fast, 3 men in expensive suits, suddenly unable to get out fast enough. At the door, Trevor turned back, trying to salvage something. You people are insane. I'm reporting this place. You're leaving. Walter still hadn't moved. And you're not coming back. The door slammed. The rain swallowed them. The diner stayed silent for another 3 heartbeats. Then someone started clapping. It was one of the truckers at the counter, big man with a Peterbilt cap, and hands like catcher's mitts. He stood up, applauding, and the sound filled the space like thunder. Another person joined. Then another. The teacher from booth 4. The couple by the window no longer worried about their breakup. The businessman who'd been working on his laptop. One by one, the entire diner rose, and the applause built like a wave, like validation, like the sound of a community remembering what it was supposed to stand for. Elena stood by the coat rack, tears streaming now, her hands covering her mouth. Walter turned toward her, walked back across the diner floor, stopped in front of her. Staff Sergeant. His voice was gentle now. You okay? Elena couldn't speak, could only shake her head, then nod, then shake it again because she wasn't okay, hadn't been okay in a long time, but something had just happened that felt like a door opening. Walter reached out slow, asking permission. When she didn't pull away, he put a hand on her shoulder. Those scars are your badge of honor. Don't you ever hide them. Not for people like him, not for anyone. Elena's voice cracked. I just want to work. I just want to be normal. You're not normal, Walter said it firmly. You're extraordinary. You're a soldier. And soldiers carry their scars forward because that's what courage looks like. May was there suddenly, mascara running, hands wringing. Elena, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. Elena looked at her. At May, who'd chosen convenience over courage. At May, who was sorry now that it was safe to be sorry. I quit, Elena said again. No. May grabbed her hand. Please, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please don't leave. This place needs you. I need you. I'll make it right. I promise. I'll make it right. Elena pulled her hand away. How? May looked around the diner at all the faces, watching all the witnesses, at Walter still standing guard, at the applause that had finally faded into expectant silence. I don't know yet, but I will. Please, give me a chance. Elena looked at Walter. He met her eyes and gave the smallest nod, the kind of nod that said, your call, but this is worth staying for. She looked at her apron still hanging on its hook in the kitchen. She looked at her hand scarred and shaking, and still capable of holding coffee pots and taking orders and getting through another day. One chance, she said. May nodded, frantic. One chance. I won't waste it. Walter squeezed Elena's shoulder once more, then let go. He walked back to his corner booth, picked up his cap, and sat down like nothing had happened. But his coffee cup was still rattling against the saucer, a small earthquake only he could feel. Elena took a breath. Then another. Then she walked back into the kitchen, picked up her apron, and tied it on with fingers that were still shaking, but no longer shaking from fear. When she came back out carrying the coffee pot, like a weapon, like a banner, like a promise, the diner erupted in applause again. This time she let herself hear it. The applause faded, but something had shifted in the air, something you could almost touch. Elena moved through the next hour in a kind of dream state, refilling cups and delivering plates, while her body remembered what to do, and her mind tried to catch up with what had just happened. Every time she approached a table, people looked up differently now. Not at her scars, at her face, at her eyes, like she'd become visible in a way she hadn't been before. The couple by the window left her a $20 on a $12 check. The businessman with the laptop stood up when she came to clear his plate, actually stood up like she was someone important, and shook her hand without saying a word. The trucker who'd started the applause pressed a challenge coin into her palm when she brought his Czech Army infantry worn smooth from years of carrying and said, "Airborne hoo-ah," under his breath before walking out into the rain. Walter stayed in his corner booth. His eggs had gone cold, but he hadn't touched them anyway. He sat with his hands wrapped around his coffee cup, staring at something that wasn't there, and Elena recognized the look because she'd seen it in her own mirror often enough. The 1,000-yard stare, they called it in the service. The look of someone watching a movie nobody else could see. She gave him space. Whatever he was seeing, he needed to see it alone. May had disappeared into the office 20 minutes ago and hadn't come out. Through the small window in the door, Elena could see her on the phone, pacing, gesturing with her free hand the way she did when she was upset. Probably calling her husband. Possibly calling a lawyer. Definitely trying to figure out how to keep a business running after its manager had publicly failed a basic test of human decency. Luis caught Elena's eye from the kitchen pass-through and jerked his chin toward the office. "She's been crying." "I heard." "You really gonna stay?" Elena looked down at her hands, at the coffee pot that had become an anchor, at the scars that had become a battlefield. "I don't know. Maybe. For now." "Good." Luis turned back to his griddle. "Place needs someone with guts. Been running on fumes too long." The lunch shift trickled in early people who'd heard something happened and wanted to see for themselves. Small towns were like that. News traveled faster than rain, soaked into everything, changed the landscape. By 11:30 the diner was full again, but the crowd was different. Quieter. More aware. People kept glancing at Elena, then looking away quickly, then looking back, like they were trying to figure out who she really was. Jenny, the other waitress, came in for her shift and grabbed Elena's arm the second she walked through the door. "Oh my God. Melissa texted me. She said some suit insulted you, and then Walter Reyes stood up and I guess basically declared war. Is that true? Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine? You're shaking. Here, let me take your section. You should sit down." "I'm working, Jenny." Jenny studied her face, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but if you need a break, if you need anything, I'll let you know." But Elena didn't take a break. Couldn't take a break. If she stopped moving, if she sat down, if she let herself think too hard about what Trevor Hale had said, or what Walter Reyes had done, or what May Collins had failed to do, she'd fall apart. And she'd done enough falling apart for one morning. So she kept moving, kept pouring, kept smiling that customer service smile that didn't reach her eyes, but got the job done. At noon, May finally emerged from the office, Her eyes were red and her makeup was ruined, and she walked straight to Elena, like she was approaching a bomb she needed to defuse. "Can we talk, please?" Elena looked around the diner. Every booth was full. The counter was packed. The lunch rush was hitting hard. "I'm in the middle of, please, 5 minutes, in the office." Elena set down her pot and followed May through the kitchen, past Luis, who was working 3 orders at once into the cramped office that smelled like old coffee and stress. May closed the door and leaned against it like she needed the support. "I've been on the phone with my therapist." Elena blinked. "Your therapist?" "I needed to talk to someone about what I did, about what I didn't do." May's voice cracked. "I failed you, Elena. When you needed me to stand up, I apologized to him instead. I chose a customer I'll never see again over an employee who's been nothing but professional for 7 months. I chose wrong, and I knew it was wrong while I was doing it, and I did it anyway because I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Of losing business, of bad reviews, of confrontation, of being seen as difficult." May laughed bitter. "God, how pathetic is that? You ran into a burning vehicle, and I can't even tell off a man in an expensive suit." Elena didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say that wouldn't sound like forgiveness, and she wasn't ready to forgive yet. Might never be ready. May wiped her eyes, smearing mascara further. "I'm changing things, starting now. I'm writing a formal harassment policy and posting it where everyone can see it. Any customer who disrespects staff for any reason, race, gender, disability, appearance, anything gets 1 warning and then they're banned. No exceptions. No second chances for men like Trevor Hale. You should have done that already." "I know. I should have done a lot of things already. I should have kicked him out the second he said something. I should have protected you. I didn't. And I'm going to have to live with that." May took a breath. "But I'm asking you to stay. Not because I deserve it. Because this place needs you, and because if you leave, that man wins. He gets to drive you out. And I don't want to live in a world where people like him get to win." Elena felt something hot behind her eyes. "You think this is about winning?" "No. I think it's about standing up, which is what Walter did, and what I should have done, and what I'm trying to do now, even though it's too late." May reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a piece of paper, handwritten, still wet with ink. "This is going up by the register today. I want you to read it first." Elena took the paper. The handwriting was shaky but clear. "Harborview Diner Code of Respect. We serve everyone with dignity. Our staff deserves your courtesy and your respect. If you cannot treat them with basic human decency, you will be asked to leave. This includes commentary about appearance, personal questions about scars or disabilities, raised voices, or any behavior that makes our team uncomfortable. We are a community here. Act like it. Any violation results in immediate removal. No warnings. No excuses. Management." Elena read it twice, then a 3rd time. It wasn't enough. Could never be enough. But it was something. It was May putting words on paper, making a promise that could be held up and pointed to when the next Trevor Hale walked through the door. "What if this costs you customers?" May met her eyes. "Then they weren't the customers I want." They stood there in the small office with the sound of the lunch rush muffled through the door, and the rain still coming down outside, and something fragile and new hanging in the air between them. "1 chance," Elena said again. "1 chance," May agreed. "I won't screw it up." Elena handed back the paper. "Post it. And May, if someone complains again, if anyone says 1 word about my scars, or anyone else's, anything, you throw them out. Immediately. No apologies. No discussion. Out." "Deal." They went back into the kitchen. May took the handwritten code to the front counter and taped it next to the register with shaking hands. Louise saw it and gave a sharp nod of approval. Jenny read it and started crying, which Elena didn't understand until Jenny whispered, "I'm trans. I've been waiting for someone to say something for 3 years." By 1 o'clock, half the diner had photographed the sign. By 2, it was on Facebook. By 3, it had been shared 40 times with comments ranging from "about time" to "this is why I love this town" to "we need this everywhere." Elena worked through it all, refilling and clearing, and trying not to think about the fact that her life had just become public in a way she'd never wanted. People were going to recognize her now. We're going to know her story. We're going to see her as the veteran waitress who got insulted and defended by a Marine and turned into some kind of symbol she never asked to be. At 3:30, Walter finally moved. He stood up from his booth, left exact change for a meal he hadn't eaten, and walked to the register where May was running the credit card machine. "Coffee was cold," he said. May looked stricken. "I'm so sorry, don't apologize." Walter put on his cap. "You did something harder than making good coffee. You admitted you were wrong and you're trying to fix it. That matters." He turned toward the door, then stopped. Looked at Elena where she stood by booth 6 with a water pitcher in her hands. "Staff Sergeant, you got a minute?" Elena set down the pitcher and followed him outside onto the covered walkway where the rain drummed overhead and the air smelled like wet asphalt and ocean. Walter pulled a pack of cigarettes from his jacket, looked at them, then put them back without taking one. "Quit 6 years ago. Still carry them around. Stupid habit." "I carry morphine syrettes," Elena said. "Haven't needed one in 8 years. Still check my pocket every morning." Walter smiled, sad. "We all got our things." He leaned against the railing, looking out at the rain. "I saw you in there. The way you held that coffee pot. The way you were shaking but kept moving. You know what that reminded me of? What? Me. 40 years ago. First year back from Vietnam. I got a job at a warehouse, loading trucks, and this foreman kept riding me. Every day. Said I was slow. Said I was lazy. Said I should quit if I couldn't hack civilian work." Walter's jaw tightened. "One day he said it in front of the whole crew. Said maybe I should have stayed in the jungle where I belonged." Elena felt her breath catch. "What did you do?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Went out to my truck on break and cried like a baby. Then quit, walked away. Let him win because I didn't have the words to fight back, didn't have anyone standing next to me saying it was okay to stand my ground." He looked at her. "You know what I've regretted for 40 years, that I didn't speak up. That I let some civilian punk make me feel small when I'd done things he couldn't imagine. That I walked away. So today I got to be for you what nobody was for me. Got to stand up when it mattered. Got to tell that suit-wearing coward that he didn't get to disrespect a soldier in my presence." Walter's voice roughened. "Thank you for letting me do that. I didn't let you do anything. You just did it. You stayed. You could have walked out that door and never come back and nobody would have blamed you. But you stayed and you kept working and you gave me the chance to make something right that's been wrong in my head for 4 decades. He pulled something from his pocket. Another challenge coin different from the one he'd left on Trevor's table. This one was older, more worn. "This is from my unit, Vietnam 72. Charlie Company 1st Marines. I want you to have it." Elena stared at the coin in his palm. "I can't take that." "You already earned it. You just didn't know it yet." He pressed it into her hand, closed her fingers around it. "You carry this. And when someone like that man comes at you again, and he will, they always do, you remember you're not alone. You remember there's a whole chain of people who've got your back. People who know what it costs to serve. People who won't let you fall." The coin was warm from his pocket, heavy in her palm. Elena felt tears coming again and blinked them back hard. "Why did you help me? You don't even know me." "I know exactly who you are. You're the medic who ran toward fire when everyone else ran away. You're the soldier who came home broken and put herself back together with willpower and spite. You're the kid who signed up knowing it might kill you and did it anyway because someone had to." Walter's eyes were bright with memory. "I know you because I was you. We're all you. Every person who ever wore the uniform and came home and tried to figure out how to be human again. We're all you." He tapped the brim of his cap in a half salute and walked out into the rain toward a battered Chevy pickup that had been parked in the same spot every Tuesday and Thursday for as long as Elena had worked there. She stood on the walkway holding the challenge coin and watching him drive away and trying to understand what had just happened to her life in the space of 8 hours. When she went back inside, the diner was full of eyes again. But this time, nobody looked away. The teacher from booth 4 waved her over. "I'm sorry I didn't say anything this morning. When he said those things, I should have spoken up." "It's okay," Elena started. "No, it's not. I teach middle school. I tell my kids every day to stand up to bullies, to speak out, to be brave. And this morning, I sat there and looked at my phone like a coward." The teacher's voice shook. "I'm ashamed, and I'm sorry, and next time, if there's a next time, I'll do better." "Me too," said the businessman from the corner, closing his laptop. "I knew it was wrong. I knew I should say something. I didn't want to make a scene. That was wrong of me." "I almost said something," one of the truckers added. "Then I figured it wasn't my business. But Walter was right. It's everybody's business when someone gets disrespected like that. It's all our business." The confessions kept coming, table after table, people approaching Elena, like she was a priest, and they needed absolution. The young mother who'd been there with her kids. The retired couple who'd been regulars for years. The college student who'd been studying in booth 2. All of them apologizing. All of them promising to do better. All of them treating her like she'd become something more than a waitress with scars. And maybe she had. Maybe that was what happened when you stopped hiding. When you stood your ground, even though your hands were shaking and your voice was breaking, and every instinct screamed to run. Maybe you became real in a way you hadn't been before. Maybe you gave other people permission to be real too. Jenny cornered her by the coffee station at 4 o'clock. "There's a reporter outside." Elena's stomach dropped. "What? From the Coastal Times. Says someone posted about what happened this morning and he wants to interview you. And Walter. And May." Jenny's face was apologetic. "I told him you were working, but he says he'll wait." "Tell him I'm not interested." "I did. He says it's going to be a story either way, with or without you. Says you might want it to be your story instead of someone else's version." Elena looked through the window. The reporter was young, maybe 25, standing under an umbrella and looking eager in that particular way journalists look when they smell something meaningful. She wanted to tell him to leave, wanted to go back to being invisible, wanted the last 8 hours to unhappen. But they'd happened, and May's sign was taped to the register, and people were already sharing the story. And somewhere out there, other veterans were probably dealing with their own Trevor Hales, fighting their own silent battles, wondering if it was okay to stop hiding. "Tell him 15 minutes, Elena said, "after my shift ends, and tell him if he uses my full name, I'll never speak to him again." The reporter's name was Kevin, and he had earnest eyes, and a recorder he kept checking to make sure it was working. They sat in booth 7. Trevor's booth, the scene of the crime, and May brought coffee nobody drank, and then hovered nearby like a worried parent. "So you're a veteran?" Kevin started. Staff Sergeant Elena Park, 101st Airborne. 8 years, 2 deployments. Combat medic. She said it flat facts without feeling the way you recite your service record. And this morning a customer commented on your scars. He told me to cover them up, said they were unprofessional, said people were trying to eat and I was making them uncomfortable. Kevin's pen moved fast across his notebook. How did that make you feel? Elena almost laughed. How do you think it made me feel like shit? Like 8 years of service didn't matter. Like the worst day of my life was something I should be ashamed of instead of... She stopped, took a breath. Look, I don't need to be in your paper. I just want to work. I just want to live my life without people treating my scars like a crime scene. But other people might need to hear this, Kevin said quietly. Other veterans. Other people with visible differences. People who've been told to hide who they are. This isn't just about you anymore. It should be just about me. It should be my private business. It was. Until someone decided to make it public. Until that customer turned your body into a topic of conversation. Kevin leaned forward. You can let him control the narrative. Or you can take it back. Your choice. Elena looked at May, who nodded. Looked at Jenny, who gave her a thumbs up. Looked at the sign by the register that said, "Harassment ends at the door." Fine. But you print exactly what I say. No embellishment, no hero worship, just the facts. Deal. She told him about the Humvee, about Martinez and Chen, about the fire and the morphine and the sound of her own skin sizzling and the smell she'd never forget no matter how many years passed. She told him about the Bronze Star and the medical retirement and the job applications that went nowhere because nobody wants to hire someone with PTSD and visible damage. She told him about 7 months of keeping her head down and her sleeves rolled up and trying to be invisible until this morning when a man in an expensive suit decided invisible wasn't good enough. Kevin's pen never stopped moving. When she finished, he looked up with something like awe. And Walter Reyes stood up for you. He did. Do you know why? Because nobody stood up for him 40 years ago. And he's been carrying that around ever since. Elena touched the challenge coin in her pocket. He gave me this. Told me I earned it. I think he's been waiting 40 years to give it to someone. Kevin wrote that down too. Then he closed his notebook and turned off his recorder. Thank you. This is going to matter to people. You're going to matter to people. I don't want to matter. I just want to make coffee and earn my tips and go home. Too late, Kevin said, not unkindly. You already matter. You mattered the second you pulled those soldiers out of the fire. You mattered when you came home and kept going. You mattered when you stood up to that customer. And you're going to matter tomorrow when people read this story and realize they're not alone. He left. The rain kept falling. The diner kept humming. And Elena sat in booth 7, holding a cup of cold coffee and trying to figure out who she was supposed to be now that she couldn't be invisible anymore. The story hit the Coastal Times website at 6 that evening and the print edition the next morning. By Thursday afternoon, it had been picked up by 3 regional papers and a military blog with 500,000 followers. By Friday, it was trending on social media under hashtags Elena didn't understand and didn't want to. By Saturday, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing with friend requests from people she'd never met and messages that started with "thank you" and ended with stories she wasn't sure she had the strength to read. She turned the phone off and went to work. Tuesday morning came again, the universe continuing its rotation like nothing had changed, and Elena walked into Harborview Diner at 6:30, expecting another shift of coffee and eggs and the blessed anonymity of routine. Instead, she found a line out the door. May was behind the register, looking panicked and thrilled in equal measure. "We've had people calling all morning asking if you're working today. I didn't know what to tell them. Tell them I'm a waitress, not a tourist attraction." "I know, but Elena, this is good for business. We've had more customers in 3 days than we usually see in 2 weeks. Elena tied on her apron without answering. Good for business. That's what it always came down to. She was good for business now, a curiosity, a story people could tell their friends about the scarred veteran who got defended by an old Marine and gave a nice interview about sacrifice and service. She'd become the thing she'd spent 7 months trying not to be visible. The morning shift was chaos. Every table wanted her section. People kept taking photos when they thought she wasn't looking. A woman in booth 4 asked if she could touch Elena's scars for luck, actually asked that with a straight face, and Elena had to walk away before she said something that would make May's harassment policy immediately relevant. At 8 o'clock, Walter came through the door, and the diner erupted in applause. He stopped in the doorway, blinking in confusion, and someone shouted, "Thank you for your service!" And someone else started chanting, "Semper Fi!" And Walter's face went through several emotions before settling on deeply uncomfortable. He made his way to his usual corner booth like he was navigating a minefield, sat down fast, and pulled his cap low over his eyes. Elena brought him coffee without being asked. Set it down gently. "Rough morning. People keep thanking me." He said it like it was a disease. "I went to the post office and 3 people stopped me. The kid at the gas station wouldn't let me pay. A woman at the grocery store cried and hugged me. I don't know what to do with that. Welcome to my week." Walter wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. "I didn't want attention. I just wanted that man to shut up." "I know. Now they're saying I'm a hero. Me. I sat in that booth for 2 years watching things happen and never said a word until it was your turn to get hurt. What kind of hero is that?" Elena slid into the booth across from him. Something she'd never done before, breaking the invisible boundary between server and customer. The kind who shows up when it matters. The kind who remembers what it felt like to be alone and refuses to let someone else feel that way. That's the only kind of hero there is, Walter. The rest is just marketing. He looked up at her eyes, red behind his glasses. "I still hear them screaming. The boys who burned. We were setting up a perimeter outside Hughes City, and a mortar hit our fuel dump. I was 50 yards away. Could smell them cooking. Could hear them calling for their mothers. I did nothing. I froze. By the time I moved, they were gone. You were 50 yards away. I should have run faster. You would have died, too." "Maybe I should have." Walter's voice cracked. "Maybe that's what I've been trying to do ever since. Sit in this booth and wait for permission to stop feeling guilty. Then you walked in with those scars, and that man said those things, and I saw my chance. Got to be the person I should have been in 1972. Got to run toward the fire instead of standing there like a coward." Elena reached across the table and put her hand over his. The scars on her forearm caught the morning light pink and puckered and permanent. "You're not a coward. You never were. You're just a man who saw something terrible and survived it and has been trying to figure out what that means ever since. That's not cowardice. That's being human. Doesn't feel human. Feels like carrying dead weight for 50 years. Then put it down." Walter laughed, bitter. "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy. It's the hardest thing there is. But Walter, you can't save those boys. They're gone. You can't run faster or be braver or change what happened. All you can do is be here now. Be here for the people who are still breathing. Be here for me when I need someone to stand up. That's what saves us. Not rewriting the past, just showing up for the present." His hand trembled under hers. "You really believe that I'm trying to?" They sat there for a moment, two soldiers separated by 40 years and connected by fire, while the diner hummed around them, and people took surreptitious photos, and somewhere in the kitchen, Luis burned someone's toast because he was watching the corner booth instead of the griddle. May appeared at Elena's elbow, wringing her hands. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you. Both of you, actually. They're from the VFW." Elena looked up. 3 men stood by the door, all of them wearing VFW caps and leather jackets patched with unit insignia and decades of service. The one in front was maybe 60 barrel-chested with a gray beard and kind eyes. Walter tensed. "Tom Brennan, post commander." "You know him. I know of him. Never came to the meetings. Didn't feel like I belonged." "Why not?" "Because I froze when it mattered." Walter said it flat. "Because I'm not the kind of Marine they sing songs about." The 3 men approached the booth. Tom Brennan extended his hand to Walter, first, then to Elena. "Staff Sergeant Park, Master Sergeant Reyes. It's an honor." Walter didn't take his hand. "We're working. We'll be quick." Tom pulled up a chair without waiting for permission. "We read the article, saw what happened here, heard what you did, Master Sergeant. How you stood up for a fellow veteran when nobody else would. That's exactly the kind of leadership our post needs." "I'm not interested. Just hear me out. We've got 200 members, maybe 50 active. The rest are guys like you sitting at home drinking alone, avoiding the one place they might actually belong. We need people who remember what service means. People who'll stand up when things get hard." Tom looked at Elena. "Both of you. We need both of you." "I pour coffee," Elena said. "I'm not a recruiter." "We're not asking you to recruit. We're asking you to show up. Let people see that veterans aren't just old guys with stories, that we're still here, still serving, still standing." Tom leaned forward. "Look, the post is dying. Membership's down. Funding's down. Half the town doesn't even know we exist. Then this happens. Then a combat medic and a Marine remind everyone what service looks like. And suddenly people are paying attention. Suddenly we matter again." "We always mattered," Walter said quietly. "Sure. But nobody remembered that until you made them remember. That's power. That's influence. That's something we can build on." Tom pulled out a flyer, set it on the table. "We're having a service night next Thursday. Free dinner for veterans and their families. We were expecting maybe 30 people. After this week, we're expecting 300. We need help. We need faces people recognize. We need you." Elena looked at the flyer. Images of flags and eagles and the words, "All who served, all who serve," in bold letters across the top. It looked earnest and desperate, and exactly like the kind of thing she'd spent 7 months avoiding. "I work Thursday nights." "We can work around your schedule," Tom said quickly. "Whatever you need. Just show up for an hour, shake some hands, let people see you, that's all we're asking." Walter was staring at his coffee like it held answers. "I haven't been to the post in 15 years. "I know, a lot of guys haven't. That's the problem. We've let the community forget we exist. Let ourselves become invisible. Then you go and do something visible and suddenly everyone remembers why places like the VFW matter." Tom stood up. "You don't owe us anything. But you might owe it to yourself. Both of you. To see what happens when veterans stop hiding and start showing up." He left the flyer and walked away, his companions following. The diner had gone quiet during the conversation, everyone pretending not to listen while absolutely listening. Elena could feel the weight of their attention, the expectation, the hope that she'd say yes and give them another moment to witness and photograph and share. "I don't want to do this," she said. Walter picked up the flyer, studied it. Me neither. So we don't. We don't. He folded the flyer once, twice, set it down. Except that kid at the grocery store, the one who hugged me. She told me her brother died in Afghanistan. Told me nobody talks about him anymore because it makes people uncomfortable. Told me seeing the article made her feel like maybe he still mattered. Walter's voice roughened. How do I say no to that? Elena closed her eyes. Saw Martinez screaming in the Humvee. Saw Chen's face pale with shock. Saw her own hands raw and burning, refusing to stop pressure on the artery because stopping meant dying. Saw every moment she'd wanted to quit, and hadn't every morning she'd gotten up even though staying in bed would have been easier. Every day she'd chosen to keep breathing when breathing hurt. We show up, she said finally. 1 hour, Thursday night. Then we're done. Then we're done, Walter agreed. They weren't done. Thursday came and the VFW hall was packed. Not 300 people, closer to 500. They'd set up folding chairs in rows and run out and added more and run out again, and people were standing along the walls and spilling out into the parking lot. The smell of barbecue and coffee and too many bodies in too small a space filled the air, and Elena stood in the back room with Walter and Tom Brennan and tried not to hyperventilate. I can't do this. You can, Tom said. You already did the hard part. You survived. This is just talking about it. I don't talk about it. Then don't. Just stand there and let people see you. Let them see that survival is possible. That's enough. Walter was pacing his dress uniform, crisp and decorated with ribbons Elena didn't recognize. He'd put on weight since Vietnam. Lost hair gained lines around his eyes, but the uniform still fit like it remembered him. There are reporters out there. 3 of them. Local news. They promised to be respectful. I don't want to be on TV. Too late. We're all on TV now. Might as well make it count. Tom checked his watch. 5 minutes. I'll introduce you both. Keep it short. Then we open it up for questions and dinner. Easy. Nothing about this was easy. They walked out into the main hall and the crowd erupted. People standing, clapping, some of them crying, all of them looking at Elena and Walter, like they'd just saved the world instead of just having one bad morning and one good reaction. Tom took the microphone and called for quiet and got it after 30 seconds of sustained applause. Thank you all for coming. When we planned this event 3 weeks ago, we thought we'd be serving dinner to a few dozen folks. Instead, we've got standing room only and a line out the door. That's because of 2 people. 2 veterans who reminded this community what service means, what sacrifice looks like, what courage demands. Tom gestured. Staff Sergeant Elena Park, Master Sergeant Walter Reyes. Come on up here. Elena walked to the front with Walter beside her, both of them moving like they were approaching an IED, careful and ready to run. The applause got louder. Someone started chanting, "Thank you," and others joined until the whole hall was shaking with gratitude. Elena didn't know how to accept. Tom handed her the microphone. Say a few words. Elena looked out at 500 faces, saw veterans from every branch and every era, saw civilians who'd never served but came anyway, saw kids too young to understand and parents too old to forget, saw the reporter with his camera and the woman from the grocery store who'd hugged Walter and May standing in the back with Jenny and Luis beside her. She brought the microphone to her lips, and her mind went blank. I don't know what to say. Her voice echoed through the speakers, raw and honest. I'm not good at speeches. I'm not good at being looked at. For 7 months I've been trying to disappear, to be normal, to just work and pay rent and figure out how to be a person again after 8 years of being a soldier. She stopped, swallowed. Then someone decided my scars were disgusting, decided I should hide, decided I was too damaged to be seen. And I almost let him win. I almost walked away. But then Walter stood up. She looked at Walter beside her. He was staring at his boots, hands clasped behind his back, standing at parade rest, like his body remembered how, even when his mind wanted to run. Walter stood up when nobody else would, when I needed someone and didn't know how to ask, when the room went quiet and cowardice looked easy. He stood up. And he reminded me that scars aren't shame. They're evidence. Evidence that we survived. Evidence that we fought. Evidence that we're still here, even when here is hard. Elena's voice cracked. I don't want to be a symbol. I don't want to be inspiration. I just want to work and live and breathe without judgment. But if being visible means someone else doesn't have to be invisible, if standing here means some other veteran sees this and realizes they're not alone, then I guess I can stand here. For an hour. For tonight. For as long as it takes. The applause was different this time. Quieter. Deeper. The sound of recognition instead of celebration. Elena handed the microphone to Walter and stepped back, her hands shaking, her breath coming hard. Walter held the microphone like it might explode, stared at it, then at the crowd, then at Elena. I'm a coward, he said. The room went still. I've been a coward for 50 years. I watched men burn and did nothing, came home and did nothing, sat in a diner booth twice a week for 2 years and watched people get mistreated and said nothing. I told myself it wasn't my business, told myself I'd done my time, told myself I'd earned the right to be quiet. He looked at Elena. Then I saw her scars, and I saw that man's face, and I saw myself at 22 years old, frozen outside Hugh City while my brothers died. And I couldn't be that person again. I couldn't watch and do nothing. So I stood up. Not because I'm brave, because I was finally more afraid of staying silent than I was of speaking up. Someone in the crowd said, Amen. Walter's hands tightened on the microphone. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what you want from me. But I know this. If you're sitting at home right now thinking you don't belong, thinking you're too broken or too guilty or too messed up to be part of this community, you're wrong. You belong. You always belonged. You just forgot. We all forgot. But maybe we can remember together. Maybe that's what places like this are for. Not to celebrate being heroes, but to admit we're human, to stand up when it's hard, to show up when it's easier to hide. That's service. That's what we signed up for. And it doesn't end just because we took off the uniform. He handed the microphone back to Tom and walked off the stage, fast heading for the back room like he was escaping enemy fire. Elena followed. They made it to the storage closet before Walter's legs gave out, and he sat down hard on a box of paper towels, his face in his hands, his whole body shaking. I can't believe I said that. Elena sat down beside him. You told the truth. I told 500 people I'm a coward. You told them you're human. There's a difference. Walter laughed, wet and broken. Is there, because I don't see it? Then look harder. Elena put her hand on his shoulder. You stood up last week when it mattered. You stood up tonight when it was scary. You keep standing up even though every instinct tells you to run. That's not cowardice. That's the opposite. Then why does it feel like dying? Because vulnerability is terrifying. Because being seen is harder than being invisible. Because admitting you're broken feels like losing. Elena squeezed his shoulder. But Walter, we're all broken. Every person in that hall. Every veteran who served and came home different. We're all carrying something. The only question is whether we carry it alone or together. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much and remembered all of it. I'm glad I stood up for you. I'm glad you were there to stand. They sat in the storage closet for another 5 minutes before Tom came looking for them, his face apologetic. People are asking questions, wanting to talk. I can tell them you're done if you want. You did more than enough. Elena looked at Walter. Walter looked at Elena. They stood up together. We'll do an hour, Elena said. Then we're leaving. They did 2 hours, answering questions, shaking hands, listening to stories from people who needed to tell them. A Vietnam vet with tears in his eyes thanking Walter for finally talking about freezing, about guilt, about carrying the weight. An Iraq vet showing Elena her own scars, surgical, not thermal, asking if it ever gets easier. A Gold Star mother who'd lost her son in Fallujah and just wanted to touch Elena's hand and say, "Thank you for bringing yours home." By the time they escaped, it was almost midnight. The parking lot was empty except for Tom's truck and May's sedan and a rental car Elena didn't recognize. The rain had started again, soft and persistent, turning the asphalt into a mirror. Walter walked Elena to her car, moving slow like the evening had aged him. You did good in there. So did you. I almost passed out twice. I threw up in the bathroom between conversations. Walter smiled, tired. We're a mess. Yeah, Elena unlocked her car. But we're a mess that showed up. That counts for something. Does it? Has to? Elena got in, started the engine. Walter stood in the rain, watching her, his uniform getting soaked, his face unreadable. Walter, you okay? Better than I've been in 50 years. He tapped the roof of her car twice the way you dismiss a convoy. See you Tuesday, Staff Sergeant. See you Tuesday. She drove home through empty streets, past closed shops and dark houses while the radio played old songs about love and loss, and the rain kept falling like it would never stop. Her phone was full of messages she hadn't read. Her voicemail was full. Her social media accounts had exploded with notifications she didn't understand and didn't want. But her hands weren't shaking anymore. And when she got home and looked in the mirror, she saw someone different. Not fixed, not healed, not whole, but visible, present, accounted for. A soldier who'd learned how to stand at ease without apologizing for taking up space. She rolled up her sleeves and left them that way. The phone call came at 7 on Friday morning, 3 days after the VFW event. Elena was pouring her first cup of coffee when her phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. She almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But something about the persistence of the ring made her answer. Is this Staff Sergeant Elena Park, who's asking? My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm a trauma surgeon at Providence Medical Center. I believe you saved my life in Kandahar province 8 years ago. The coffee cup slipped from Elena's hand and shattered on the kitchen floor. Brown liquid spread across the tile, like blood, like fuel, like the past refusing to stay buried. Specialist Chen. Captain Chen now. I stayed in. Made it to 18 years before I realized I was done. Got out last month. Sarah's voice was older, but unmistakable, still carrying that Chicago accent that had made her stand out in the desert. I saw the article. Saw your picture. Took me 3 days to work up the nerve to call. Elena sat down on the floor next to the spilled coffee, her back against the cabinet, her breath coming shallow. You made it out. Because you dragged me out. Because you put your hands on my femoral artery and wouldn't let go even when your own skin was burning. Because you screamed at me to stay awake and I was too scared of disappointing you to die. Sarah's voice cracked. I've been looking for you for 8 years. The army wouldn't tell me where you went. HIPAA privacy, all that. But then I saw your face in the newspaper and I thought maybe this is my chance. Maybe I can finally say thank you. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. Elena, I have a daughter now. She's 4 years old. She exists because you refuse to let me bleed out in a Humvee. Every birthday, every Christmas, every moment I get to be her mother is because you paid a price you shouldn't have had to pay. Sarah took a shaky breath. I want to meet you. If you're willing. If it's not too hard. I need you to see what you saved. I need you to know it was worth it. Elena closed her eyes and saw the fire. Saw Chen's face white with shock and pain. Saw Martinez in the driver's seat, unconscious and bleeding from a head wound. Saw her own hands slick with blood and fuel pressing down on the artery, while the heat built and built. And Chen kept saying, I can't feel my legs, I can't feel my legs. And Elena kept saying, you're fine. You're going to be fine. Just stay with me. She'd believed it when she said it. Had to believe it. Because the alternative was watching another soldier die, and there had already been too many of those too many faces that visited her at 3 a.m, when sleep wouldn't come. I'm working lunch shift today. Harborview Diner. You can come by if you want. I'll be there. Sarah hung up, and Elena sat on her kitchen floor surrounded by broken ceramic and cold coffee, and the weight of 8 years of wondering if it had mattered. If any of it had mattered. If the scars and the nightmares and the inability to hear sudden loud noises without flinching had been worth 2 lives saved. Now one of those lives had a daughter. Had 18 years of service. Had a voice on the phone saying thank you like it was a prayer. Elena cleaned up the coffee and went to work. The diner was steady, but not overwhelming the post-article rush, having settled into a new normal, where people came because the food was good, and maybe also because they wanted to see the veteran waitress, but mostly because May had stopped apologizing for everything and started running the place like she meant it. The harassment policy was laminated now, posted in 3 places, and May had already thrown out 2 customers for crossing the line. The staff worshipped her for it. Elena was refilling waters at booth 3 when Sarah Chen walked through the door. She knew her immediately. Older, yes. Harder around the eyes, yes. But still recognizably the specialist who'd joked about deep dish pizza while they pulled guard duty and talked about going to medical school someday, and had a photo of her high school sweetheart taped inside her helmet. Sarah stopped just inside the door, scanning faces until she found Elena. Their eyes met across 20 feet and 8 years, and Elena felt something in her chest break open, something she'd been holding closed with both hands and all her strength. Sarah crossed the diner fast. Elena met her halfway. They collided in the middle of the floor, and Sarah grabbed her hard arms around her shoulders, face pressed into Elena's neck, and started sobbing. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. She said it over and over like a mantra, like the only words she knew, like nothing else mattered. Elena held her, and felt her own tears coming, and didn't fight them. The diner went quiet. May started to approach, and Luis waved her off, recognizing something sacred when he saw it. When Sarah finally pulled back, her face was wrecked, makeup running nose-red, smile, brilliant. Sorry, I told myself I wouldn't cry. I'm crying too. We're a mess. We're alive. That's allowed to be messy. Sarah wiped her face with her sleeve. Can we sit? Can you take a break? I can take a break. Elena led her to booth 7. Walter's booth, the booth that had become significant without anyone planning it. May brought coffee without being asked and left fast reading the room perfectly. Sarah wrapped her hands around the mug and stared at Elena like she was memorizing her face. You look different. 8 years different. No, more than that. Stronger, maybe. Or just more present. Like you're actually here instead of somewhere else. Sarah smiled. I spent 3 years in therapy learning how to be present. It's harder than it sounds. I'm still learning. We're all still learning. That's the thing nobody tells you about getting out. The war doesn't end. It just changes location. Sarah took a sip of coffee, grimaced at the heat. Martinez emailed me last month. Did you know that he's in Denver? Married. 2 kids. Works construction. He saw the article too. Wanted me to tell you he thinks about you every day. Elena felt something hot behind her sternum. He made it out okay. Traumatic brain injury. Some memory issues. But yeah, he made it out. We both did. Because you wouldn't let us go. Sarah set down her coffee. Can I see them? The scars. Elena hesitated. It felt different with Sarah. Intimate in a way it wasn't with strangers. These scars were connected to Sarah's life, were the price paid for her survival. Looking at them together felt like opening a wound that had barely closed. But Sarah had asked. And Sarah had earned the right to ask. Elena rolled up her sleeves and laid her forearms on the table between them. The scars caught the overhead light, pink and white and permanent. Sarah reached out slowly, asking permission with her eyes. When Elena nodded, Sarah traced the patterns with one finger, gentle as prayer. I remember when these were fresh. When you were screaming, and the medics were trying to get you to let go of my leg, and you wouldn't. You kept saying you couldn't let go, or I'd bleed out. They had to sedate you to get your hands off me. Sarah's finger stopped on a particularly bad patch near Elena's elbow. I woke up 3 days later in Landstuhl, and the first thing I asked was whether you were okay. They said you'd been transferred to Brook. Told me you'd probably saved my life, but lost use of your hands for a while. I tried to visit when I got stateside, but they said you'd already been discharged. Medical retirement. After that, you just disappeared. I didn't want to be found. I know. I get it. But Elena, I needed you to know what you gave me. What you made possible. Sarah pulled out her phone, swiped through photos, turned the screen around. A little girl with dark curls and Sarah's smile, wearing a princess dress and holding a stuffed elephant. Another photo of the same girl blowing out birthday candles. Another of her asleep on Sarah's shoulder. Another of her in a tiny cap and gown at preschool graduation. Her name is Elena. The words hit like a mortar round. Elena stared at the phone at the little girl with her name at the life that existed because she'd run toward fire instead of away. You named her. After you. Of course, after you. My daughter exists because you wouldn't let me die. How could I name her anything else? Sarah's voice was fierce now, all the softness gone. Every night when I tuck her in, every morning, when she climbs into my bed, every skinned knee and bad dream, and first day of school, I think about you. About what you paid so I could have this. And I need you to know it was worth it. Whatever you're carrying, whatever guilt or pain or regret, it was worth it. My daughter is proof that it was worth it. Elena couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. She stared at the photos and felt 8 years of wondering crash into 8 seconds of knowing. It had mattered. The fire and the pain and the surgeries and the months of rehabilitation and the medical retirement and the job applications that went nowhere and the PTSD and the nightmares and the scars that made people uncomfortable at breakfast. All of it had mattered because somewhere in Chicago, a little girl named Elena was learning to read and didn't know her life was a miracle. Can I meet her? Sarah's face lit up. Are you kidding? She's in the car with my mom right now. I didn't know if you'd want to see her, so I didn't bring her in. But oh my God. Yes, please, she's going to lose her mind. They went outside together. Elena still in her apron. Sarah practically vibrating with excitement. The rental car was parked at the far end of the lot, and through the window, Elena could see an older woman in the driver's seat, and a car seat in the back. Sarah opened the rear door and unbuckled her daughter, lifting her out with practiced ease. The little girl wrapped her arms around Sarah's neck and peered at Elena with curious brown eyes. "Elena, this is Elena. My big Elena, meet little Elena." The little girl studied her solemnly. "You have the same name as me." "I do." "That's funny. Very funny." Elena felt tears threatening again and blinked them back hard. "Your mom named you after me because we were friends a long time ago. Mommy says you're a hero. Your mom is wrong. She's the hero. I just helped her get home." Little Elena considered this with the seriousness of someone who'd lived 4 years and knew everything. "Mommy says you have magic hands that can fix people." Elena looked at her hands, scarred and shaking slightly. The same hands that had held arteries closed and started IVs in moving vehicles and counted chest compressions and refused to give up even when giving up would have been easier. Not magic, just trained and stubborn. "Can I see?" Elena held out her hands. Little Elena reached out and traced the scars with one tiny finger, the same gesture her mother had made 10 minutes ago. The touch was light, curious, without judgment or fear. "They're bumpy." "They are." "Do they hurt?" "Sometimes, when it rains, or when I'm tired, but mostly they just remind me that I did something hard and survived it." "Mommy has scars too, on her leg. She says they're her warrior marks." Sarah shifted her daughter to her other hip, smiling through tears. "That's right, baby. We all have our warrior marks. That's how you know we fought hard." Little Elena touched Elena's forearm one more time, then leaned forward and kissed the scars, just pressed her small lips to the damaged skin like she was blessing it, like she was thanking it, like she understood in the way children sometimes do that this skin had paid for her existence. Elena broke. Just completely fell apart right there in the diner parking lot, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe, and Sarah was crying too, and little Elena looked worried and said, "Did I hurt you?" And Elena managed to choke out, "No, sweetheart, you healed me." Sarah's mother got out of the car and introduced herself as Patricia and hugged Elena like they were family, which maybe they were now bound by trauma and survival, and the little girl who carried a name forward into the future. They stood in the parking lot for another 20 minutes while Patricia took photos and little Elena asked questions, and Sarah held Elena's hand like she was afraid if she let go, they'd lose each other again. "Come visit us," Sarah said when they were finally saying goodbye. "Come to Chicago. Stay with us. Let me cook you dinner and show you around and let my daughter get to know her namesake. Please. We have so much time to make up for." "I'll come." Elena meant it, could already see it happening, could feel the shape of a future that included this connection, this proof that her service had mattered beyond medals and paperwork. Sarah hugged her one more time, hard and fierce. "Don't disappear again. Promise me." "I promise." Elena watched them drive away, watched the rental car disappear down Main Street toward the highway, watched until the tail lights were gone, and she was standing alone in the parking lot with May watching from the diner window. She went back inside. May met her at the door with a box of tissues and a knowing look. "That was intense. That was someone I saved, in Afghanistan. She named her daughter after me." May's eyes went wide. "Oh my God." "Yeah." Elena took a tissue, wiped her face, tried to pull herself together. "I need a minute." "Take an hour. Take the rest of the day. Luis and I can handle it." But Elena didn't take the rest of the day. She washed her face in the bathroom, fixed her hair, put her apron back on, and went back to work, because work was what she knew how to do. Work was the thing that made sense when everything else was overwhelming. Work was the rhythm that kept her upright and moving forward. Walter came in at his usual time and took one look at her face and knew something had happened. He didn't ask, just sat in his booth and waited. When Elena brought his coffee, she sat down across from him without asking. "The specialist I pulled out of the Humvee came to see me today, the one whose artery I held closed. Her name is Sarah Chen." Walter went very still. "The woman from your story. She's a captain now, retired. She has a daughter." Elena's voice cracked. "She named her daughter after me, Walter. This little 4-year-old girl exists because I didn't let her mother bleed out, and she has my name, and she kissed my scars and said they were warrior marks." Walter reached across the table and took her hand. "That's why we do it. That's why we stand up when we're scared and run forward when everyone else runs back. For the little girls who get to exist, for the futures we make possible, for the proof that it mattered. I've spent 8 years wondering if it was worth it, if any of it was worth it. And now you know. Now I know." Elena squeezed his hand. "But Walter, I need to tell you something. Sarah said Martinez is alive. He's in Denver. He has kids. He saw the article too. He wants to say thank you." Walter's face did something complicated. "The private you pulled out. The one who was unconscious when I got there. Head injury, some memory issues. But he's alive. He's okay. He's living his life." Elena held Walter's gaze. "You asked me how we put down the weight we've been carrying. This is how. By finding out what we saved. By seeing the proof. By letting the people we fought for tell us it was worth it." Walter's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't save anyone. You saved me, last week, in this diner, when I needed someone to stand up and you did. That counts, Walter. That counts as saving someone. It's not the same. It's exactly the same. It's seeing someone in danger and choosing to act. It's paying a price so someone else doesn't have to. It's service. It doesn't matter if it's in a war zone or a diner. It's still service. You still saved me." Walter looked at their joined hands at her scars and his age spots and the way they'd somehow found each other across 5 decades and 2 different wars. "I don't know how to believe that." "Then let me believe it for both of us until you can believe it yourself. Let Sarah believe it. Let all the people at the VFW who watched you admit you're human and felt less alone believe it. Let little Elena believe it because she exists partly because you taught me it's okay to be visible." Elena's grip tightened. "You saved me, Walter. You're still saving me. That's your proof. I'm right here. I'm still breathing. That's because of you." Walter pulled his hand away and wiped his face roughly with his napkin. "Damn it, Elena. I know. I came here for eggs and coffee, not therapy. Too late. We're all in therapy now. It's the new normal." He laughed wet and broken. "When did you get so wise? About 30 seconds ago when I stopped trying to carry everything alone." Elena stood up. "Eat your eggs. They're getting cold. I've got tables to cover." She walked away and left Walter sitting in his booth with cold eggs and a new understanding of what salvation looked like when it showed up wearing an apron and carrying coffee. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of normal. Orders taken. Plates delivered. Checks settled. The ordinary rhythm of work that felt extraordinary now that Elena understood what it was building toward. Every tip was proof she could support herself. Every smile was proof she could interact with humans. Every hour she stayed upright was proof that survival was possible, that getting out of bed mattered, that showing up was its own kind of courage. At 4 o'clock, Tom Brennan came through the door with 2 other men from the VFW. They sat at the counter and ordered coffee and pie, and when Elena brought it, Tom slid an envelope across to her. "What's this? Membership, paid through the end of the year. We took a vote. It was unanimous. You're one of us now, whether you want to be or not." Elena opened the envelope. A membership card with her name and rank and service dates, a letter welcoming her to Post 847, a schedule of events and meetings and volunteer opportunities, a list of resources for veterans struggling with employment, housing, mental health benefits. "I didn't ask for this." "You didn't have to. You showed up. That's all we ask. Show up when you can. Let us show up for you when you need it. That's how this works." Tom took a bite of pie. "Also, we need someone to teach a Stop the Bleed class. Sarah Chen emailed us this morning, said you were a combat medic and would be perfect for it. We've got 15 people signed up already. Class would be once a month. We'll pay you." "I don't need. It's not about need. It's about value. Your skills have value. Your experience has value. Let us compensate you for sharing them. Let us treat your service like it matters, because it does." Tom finished his pie. "First class is next Tuesday at 7, VFW Hall. We've got all the equipment. You just need to show up and teach. Can you do that?" Elena looked at the membership card, at her name printed in official letters, at the proof that she belonged somewhere, that she was wanted, that her presence mattered to people who understood what service cost. "I can do that." "Good. Walter already volunteered to help. Said something about needing to learn new ways to save people since the old ways didn't work." Tom stood up, left cash for the pie and coffee. "You two are going to change this town." "Already have, really. People are talking about service again, about respect, about standing up instead of staying silent. That's because of you. Both of you. Don't underestimate what you started here." He left, and Elena stood at the counter holding her membership card and trying to understand how her life had transformed in the space of 2 weeks. How she'd gone from invisible to visible, from isolated to connected, from wondering if survival was worth it to teaching other people how to survive. May appeared at her elbow. "Stop the Bleed class. That's amazing." "It's terrifying." "Same thing. When did you learn that?" "Just now. From everyone who keeps showing up and refusing to let me hide." Elena tucked the membership card into her apron pocket. "May, I need Tuesday nights off, starting next week." "Done. Anything you need. You know that." May hesitated. "Elena, I've been thinking. That harassment policy, the sign, all of it. I want to do more. I want to create a safe space for veterans. Maybe monthly breakfast on the house. Maybe hiring preferences. Maybe a community board where people can post resources and opportunities. I don't know exactly what yet, but something. Something that says this place recognizes service and honors it and won't let anyone disrespect it." "That would mean a lot." "Then I'll make it happen. Consider it done." May squeezed her shoulder. "You changed me too, you know. Made me remember that standing up is more important than standing back. That choosing right over easy matters. That courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway. You taught me that. You and Walter both." Elena felt tears threatening again and blinked them back. She was tired of crying. Tired of falling apart every few hours. But maybe that was part of it too. Maybe falling apart was how you put yourself back together differently. Maybe breaking open was the only way to let light in. She finished her shift, counted her tips, told Luis and Jenny goodbye, walked out to her car in the late afternoon sun that had burned through the clouds and turned the world gold. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Thank you for today. Elena won't stop talking about her warrior marks. You gave her something precious. You gave us both something precious. I love you." Elena stared at those last 3 words. "I love you." From someone she'd dragged from fire 8 years ago. From someone who'd named her daughter after her. From someone who'd driven hundreds of miles to say thank you. She texted back, "I love you too. Tell little Elena her warrior marks are just getting started." Then she drove home and made dinner and sat on her couch with the TV on, but not watching it, just existing in the quiet space of knowing that her life had purpose, that her scars had meaning, that showing up mattered and standing up mattered and refusing to hide mattered. Her phone buzzed again, a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Is this Elena Park?" "Yes." "This is David Martinez from Kandahar. You saved my life 8 years ago, and I've been trying to find you ever since." Elena closed her eyes and felt the last piece of the puzzle slide into place. "Hi, Martinez. I've been trying to find you too." Martinez's voice was different than she remembered, deeper and slower, like he'd learned to measure his words carefully. He told her about the headaches that lasted 3 years, about the memory gaps that still showed up without warning, about his wife, Rosa, who'd stuck with him through the worst of it, about his 2 sons, 7 and 5, who thought their dad was invincible because he'd survived an IED and a vehicle fire and come home in one piece. "Chen called me yesterday, told me she found you, told me about her daughter." Martinez's voice went rough. "I've got a box in my garage. It's full of things I was going to give you if I ever found you. Letters, mostly. Things I wanted to say. I've been writing them for 8 years. You don't need to." "Yeah, I do, Elena. I don't remember the explosion. Don't remember the fire. I've got about 20 minutes of that day just gone from my head. But Chen told me what happened. Told me you pulled me out while you were burning. Told me you stayed with both of us until the medevac arrived. Told me you lost the use of your hands for months because you wouldn't let go." He paused. "My boys exist because you wouldn't let go. How do I live with that? How do I wake up every morning knowing someone paid that price for me?" Elena leaned back against her couch phone, pressed to her ear, and felt the weight of his question. It was the same weight she'd been carrying. The same math that didn't balance. The same impossible gratitude. You live by living well, by being there for your wife, by raising your sons, by showing up every day and making it count. That's how you honor it, Martinez. You make it worth it. Is it worth it? Your hands, your career, your... Yes. Elena said it without hesitation. Today I met Chen's daughter. She kissed my scars and called them warrior marks. And now I'm talking to you and you're telling me about your sons. That's worth it. That's worth everything. Martinez was quiet for a long moment. I want to come see you. Me and Rosa and the boys. We're driving cross-country this summer, making a big loop. We could swing through your town. If you want. If it's not too weird. It's not weird. Come. Please come. I want to meet them. I want to meet the family that exists, because we both survived. They talked for another hour, about Denver and construction work, and how Rosa kept the house running when Martinez's brain fog got bad. About the older son who wanted to be a firefighter, and the younger one who was scared of everything and needed patience Martinez was still learning how to have. About therapy and medication and the slow process of rebuilding a life after trauma. When they finally hung up, Elena sat in the dark with her phone in her lap and felt something shift in her chest. Something that had been clenched tight for 8 years, finally letting go. She'd spent so long wondering if saving them had been worth losing herself. But they weren't lost. They were in Chicago and Denver, living full, complicated, beautiful lives. And she wasn't lost either. She was here. She was breathing. She was learning how to be visible. Her phone buzzed with a text from Walter. "Tuesday night. Stop the bleed class. You teaching or am I?" She typed back. "We both are. You're going to learn whether you want to or not." His response came fast. "I'm 68 years old. My hands shake. I can barely work my TV remote." "Then you're perfect. Real people have shaky hands. Real people aren't perfect. That's who we're teaching. Real people who want to help." "You're bossy for someone who quit 2 weeks ago." "I didn't quit. I strategically threatened to quit until management got their act together." "That's called quitting staff sergeant." "That's called negotiation master sergeant. See you Tuesday." She set down her phone and allowed herself to smile, to feel something that might be happiness or might just be the absence of constant fear. Either way, it was progress. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Elena borrowed medical training dummies from the VA, ordered supplies from a first aid website, made handouts and diagrams, and tried to remember how she'd taught this 8 years ago to soldiers who were heading down range and needed skills that might save their buddies. The mechanics were the same. The context was different. These would be civilians, people without training, people who just wanted to help if something bad happened. She called Sarah on Saturday night. "I'm teaching a Stop the Bleed class Tuesday. I'm terrified." "Why, you've done this 1,000 times." "I've done it for soldiers, people who signed up for hard things. This is different. These are normal people who might freeze when it matters." "You're a normal person who didn't freeze when it mattered. Teach them that. Teach them that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about acting anyway." Sarah paused. "Little Elena keeps asking when we can visit you. She wants to show you her warrior marks. She fell off her bike yesterday and scraped her knee and told everyone at preschool it was her first warrior mark." Elena felt her throat tighten. "Tell her she's the bravest 4-year-old I know." "I will. And Elena, you're going to be amazing Tuesday night. You're going to save lives just by teaching people they can save lives. That's your superpower. Don't forget it." They hung up, and Elena went back to her handouts, refining and revising until her printer ran out of ink and she had to run to the store at 10 at night. The clerk recognized her from the article and tried to start a conversation, and Elena smiled politely and paid and left because she was still learning how to be recognized without feeling exposed. Sunday, she met Walter at the VFW hall to set up. He'd brought coffee and donuts and a nervous energy that made him talk too much. "I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not a medic. I'm not trained. I'm just an old Marine who stood up once, and now people think I'm qualified for something." "You're qualified to be present, to show people that service doesn't end. That's enough." Elena started arranging chairs. "Plus, you're going to be the practice dummy. I need someone to demonstrate on." "Absolutely not." "Too late. You volunteered." "I did not volunteer." "You showed up. That's the same thing." Elena grinned at him. "Come here. Let me show you how to pack a wound. You're going to love this." She spent the next hour teaching Walter the basics. Direct pressure, wound packing, tourniquet application. He was clumsy at first, his hands shaking worse when he was nervous, but he kept trying, kept practicing, kept asking questions until he got it right. "This is harder than it looks." "Everything is harder than it looks. That's why we practice." Elena adjusted his hand position on the tourniquet. "There. Like that. You're doing it right. I'm going to forget all of this by Tuesday. Then we'll practice again Monday, and Tuesday before class, and during class. That's how learning works, Walter. Repetition until it becomes muscle memory." She stepped back. "You're doing good. Better than most people on their first try." He looked at his hands at the training equipment at Elena standing there patient and certain. "How are you not scared of this, of teaching, of being in front of people? I'm terrified. But I'm more scared of not doing it, of letting fear win, of staying silent when I could help. Elena started packing up the supplies. Someone once told me that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway. I'm just trying to live up to that. That someone sounds wise. She is. She named her daughter after me and taught me that my scars matter because they saved her life. That's pretty wise. Elena looked at Walter. You taught me that hiding is worse than being seen. That standing up matters even when your hands shake. That's wisdom too, Walter. You've got wisdom. You just don't know it yet. Monday they practiced again. Tuesday afternoon, Elena couldn't eat. Her stomach was tight, and her hands wouldn't stop moving, and she kept checking her notes even though she'd memorized them. May sent her home early. Go rest. You look like you're about to pass out. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're about to teach your first class and you're spiraling. Go home. Take a bath. Eat something. Show up at 7 ready to be amazing. May hugged her quick. You've got this. You've saved lives under fire. This is just talking about it. You've got this. Elena went home. Didn't take a bath. Ate half a sandwich. Changed clothes 3 times. Drove to the VFW hall at 6:30 and found 30 people already there. Tom met her at the door. We capped it at 20. 30 showed up. I couldn't turn anyone away. 30 people. 30 people who want to learn how to save lives, who showed up because you inspired them. No pressure. Tom grinned. Walter's already here. He's been pacing for 20 minutes. You two are quite a pair. Elena found Walter in the back room. He was wearing his USMC shirt, and his hands were shaking, and he looked like he might throw up. I can't do this. Yes, you can. We practiced, you know this. I know it alone, not in front of 30 people. Then pretend they're not there. Pretend it's just you and me. Pretend it's Tuesday morning in the diner and we're just talking. Elena put her hands on his shoulders. Walter, you stood up in front of 500 people at the service night. You told them you were a coward and you were human and you were trying to be better. This is nothing compared to that. This is just showing them how to tie a tourniquet. You can do this. What if I freeze? Then I'll keep talking until you unfreeze. That's what partners do. We cover for each other. We hold each other up. We refuse to let each other fall. She squeezed his shoulders. You ready? No. Perfect, let's go. They walked out together into the main hall, and the 30 people applauded, and Elena felt her fear transmute into something else. Not confidence exactly, more like determination, like the feeling she'd had running toward the burning Humvee. Like the certainty that someone needed help, and she was the one there to give it. She started talking, and the words came. She told them about the golden hour, about how most trauma deaths happen within the first 60 minutes, about how bystanders with basic skills could save lives just by acting, about how bleeding kills faster than anything else, and stopping bleeding is simple if you know how. She showed them tourniquets, demonstrated on Walter's arm, walked them through the steps, had them practice on each other, corrected hand positions, answered questions, watched 30 people transform from hesitant to capable in the space of an hour. Walter told them about Vietnam, about watching men die because nobody knew what to do, about carrying guilt for 50 years because he'd frozen, about learning now at 68 that it's never too late to be useful, to be ready, to be the person who acts when others hesitate. I spent 50 years wishing I'd been better, Walter said, his voice steady now, the shaking gone. Wishing I'd been braver. Wishing I'd known what to do. I can't change the past. But I can change what I do next time. That's what we're doing here. We're preparing for next time. So when something bad happens, we don't freeze. We act. We save lives. We become the person we wish we'd been. The class went silent. Elena saw tears on several faces, saw recognition, saw people understanding that this wasn't just about medical skills, it was about choosing courage over fear, about refusing to be the bystander who does nothing. They practiced for another hour. Wound packing, pressure application, when to call 911, how to stay calm, how to talk to the injured person, how to be the help that arrives before the professionals get there. At 9 o'clock, Elena called it. That's it. You're all certified in basic bleeding control. You're all capable of saving a life. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for learning. Thank you for being the kind of people who refuse to stand by and do nothing. The 30 people stood and applauded, and several of them came forward to hug Elena, to shake Walter's hand, to say thank you, and ask when the next class would be. A woman in her 40s approached Elena with tears streaming down her face. My son died 3 years ago. Car accident. Nobody at the scene knew what to do. He bled out before the ambulance arrived. The doctor said if someone had just applied pressure, just done something, he might have made it. She grabbed Elena's hands. Thank you for teaching this. Thank you for making sure someone else's son doesn't die, because people were too scared to help. Thank you. She walked away, and Elena stood there, trying not to break. Tom appeared at her elbow. 15 more people signed up for next month. We're going to need a bigger space. He handed her an envelope. Payment for tonight. And Elena, you're changing lives. Both of you. Don't ever doubt that. Elena opened the envelope later in her car. $300. More than she made in 2 shifts at the diner. She stared at it and understood that her life had split into before and after. Before, when she hid her scars and tried to disappear. After, when she rolled up her sleeves and taught people how to save lives. She drove to Walter's house without planning to, found him sitting on his porch in the dark, smoking a cigarette he'd bummed from his neighbor because he still carried the pack, but wouldn't buy more. You're not supposed to smoke. I'm not supposed to do a lot of things. Sit down. He moved over on the porch step, and Elena sat beside him. They watched the street in silence. 2 soldiers who'd found each other by accident and were holding on by choice. We did good tonight, Walter said finally. We did. That woman whose son died. I keep thinking about her, about all the times something bad happened and nobody knew what to do, about how many people die because of ignorance instead of injury. He took a drag on the cigarette. We're fixing that. 1 class at a time. We're making sure fewer people have to carry that weight. We're trying. We're succeeding. Walter looked at her. You know what I realized tonight? That I've been waiting 50 years to be useful again, to matter, to serve. And you gave me that. You and your scars and your refusal to hide. You gave me permission to stand up, to show up, to be the Marine I always wanted to be. Thank you. You gave me the same thing. Then we're even. We're not even. We're in debt to each other. That's how this works. We save each other, and then we keep saving each other, and nobody's even because that's not the point. The point is to keep going, to keep showing up, to keep refusing to let the fire win. Elena leaned against his shoulder. I'm tired, Walter. I know. But I'm not done. I know that too. They sat in the dark and smoked his borrowed cigarette and watched the neighborhood sleep. Somewhere in Chicago, a little girl named Elena was dreaming about warrior marks. Somewhere in Denver, Martinez was putting his sons to bed and being grateful for another day. Somewhere in the universe, 2 soldiers who'd been pulled from fire were breathing and living and making the scars worth it. The next morning, Elena went to work and found May at the register with a printed flyer. Monthly veteran breakfast. First Saturday of every month. Free meal, free coffee, free space to exist without judgment. I called the American Legion and the VFW and put up posts online. I'm expecting maybe 20 people this Saturday, maybe more. I want you there. Not working. Just there. Present. Visible. Showing other veterans that this is a safe space. Elena took the flyer. Read it twice. Felt something warm expand in her chest. I'll be there. Good. Also, I hired another veteran. His name is Marcus. He's 23. Did 2 tours in Iraq. Got out last year and has been struggling to find work. He starts Monday. May's voice was fierce. I'm making this place what it should have been all along. A place that honors service, that protects its people, that stands up instead of apologizing. You taught me that. Now I'm teaching it forward. The Saturday breakfast brought 40 veterans. The next month brought 60. By the 3rd month, they were seating people in shifts, and May was talking about expanding the diner. Marcus worked the counter with quiet competence and didn't flinch when loud noises happened because nobody made him feel broken for flinching. Elena's Stop the Bleed class grew. 20 people. 30. 40. Tom found a bigger space at the community center. Walter became her permanent co-teacher. They developed a rhythm, a partnership, a shared mission that filled the empty spaces where isolation used to live. Sarah and little Elena visited in July. Martinez and his family came through in August. The 3 of them sat in the diner together, the 3 soldiers who'd survived the fire, and talked about ordinary things. About kids and jobs and the weather. About therapy and medication and the slow work of healing. About how they'd all changed, and how they were all still changing, and how survival was a choice you made every morning when you got out of bed. Little Elena ate pancakes, and showed Elena her new warrior marks, a scraped elbow, and a scar on her chin from falling off the monkey bars. Martinez's boys were loud and beautiful, and called Elena the hero lady, until Martinez corrected them and said, "We don't do heroes, we do people who showed up when it mattered." The local news ran a follow-up story. The article got picked up nationally. Elena's phone exploded again. She ignored most of it, answered some, learned to say no without guilt, learned to protect her peace while still being present. In October, the diner's harassment policy was cited in a diversity training program. May was invited to speak at a restaurant industry conference about creating inclusive workplaces. She brought Elena with her. Elena wore short sleeves and stood on stage and told 500 restaurant owners that scars tell stories and stories matter, and anyone who makes their staff hide who they are isn't running a business, they're running a prison. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. In November, the VFW awarded Walter and Elena their Community Service Medal. They stood on stage together, 2 soldiers separated by 40 years and united by fire, while Tom Brennan read a citation about courage and service, and the choice to stand up when sitting down would be easier. In December, on a Tuesday morning at 7:30, Trevor Hale walked back into Harborview Diner. Elena was refilling coffee at booth 3 when she saw him. Felt her body go cold. Felt the old fear spike. Watched him walk to the counter and sit down and pick up a menu like he'd never been there before, like he hadn't insulted her and diminished her and made her question whether she had the right to exist in public. May saw him too. Her face went hard. She walked over to him with her shoulders back and her voice steady. "We don't serve you here." Trevor looked up confused. "Excuse me. You were banned 6 months ago for harassing staff. The ban is permanent. You need to leave." "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been here." "You told one of my servers to cover her burn scars because they were disgusting. You made her feel unsafe in her workplace. That's against policy. You're not welcome here. Leave." Trevor's face went red. "This is discrimination. I'll sue. You'll leave. Now, or I'll call the police and have you escorted out. May's voice never wavered. Your choice. But you're not eating here. Not ever. Trevor stood up fast, his stool scraping. This place is a joke. Your food is mediocre. Our service is excellent. Our staff is protected. Our values are clear. And you're leaving. May pointed to the door. Now! He left sputtering threats that everyone knew were empty. The door slammed behind him. The diner was silent for 3 seconds. Then Luis started applauding from the kitchen. Then Jenny joined in. Then every customer in the diner stood and clapped, and May turned to find Elena standing behind her with tears streaming down her face. You didn't even hesitate. Of course not. You taught me that. May hugged her hard. Nobody makes you feel small in my diner. Not anymore. Not ever. That's a promise. Elena held her and felt the last piece of armor fall away. She didn't need to protect herself anymore. She had people who would protect her. She had a community that had chosen her. She had proven that being visible was better than being safe, that courage was contagious, that standing up mattered more than keeping quiet. That night she called Sarah and Martinez and told them what happened. They celebrated over video chat toasting with coffee and juice boxes, and the knowledge that sometimes the story comes full circle. Sometimes the bully comes back and gets exactly what he deserves. Sometimes justice is just a manager saying no and meaning it. The article Elena had dreaded became the article she was grateful for. It brought Sarah back into her life. It brought Martinez. It brought purpose and community and a reason to get up every morning. It brought Walter out of his corner booth and into partnership. It brought May into her courage. It brought 30, then 60, then 100 people to classes where they learned that saving lives was possible if you just acted. December turned to January. The anniversary of Elena's knowledge cutoff date passed without notice. She was too busy teaching and working and living to mark time by what she'd lost. She marked it instead by what she'd gained. On the last Tuesday of January, Elena walked into the diner and found Walter in his usual booth with his usual order. She brought him coffee and sat down across from him without asking. You know what today is? Tuesday. It's been a year since you stood up for me. 1 year since everything changed. Walter looked at his coffee. Doesn't feel like a year. Feels like a lifetime. Feels like I've lived 10 years and 12 months. Elena reached across the table. Thank you for standing up, for refusing to let me be invisible, for teaching me that scars are proof of survival, not evidence of damage. Thank you. Walter took her hand. Thank you for running toward fire, for saving Chen and Martinez, for teaching me that it's never too late to be useful, for giving me a reason to get out of bed. Thank you. They sat in their booth, holding hands across the table. Two soldiers who'd learned that service doesn't end when you take off the uniform. It just changes shape, becomes teaching instead of fighting, becomes standing up instead of staying silent, becomes choosing visibility over safety, courage over comfort, community over isolation. The diner hummed around them. May was training a new hire, another veteran teaching her the harassment policy before she even learned how to work the register. Jenny was covering a section while singing off-key to the radio. Luis was burning toast on purpose because someone had ordered it extra crispy. The morning light came through the windows and painted everything gold. Elena looked at her hands, at the scars that had tried to end her and had instead remade her. at the evidence of the day she'd chosen other people's lives over her own comfort. At the warrior marks that a 4-year-old girl in Chicago had kissed and blessed and made holy. She rolled up her sleeves once more, not to prove anything, but because hiding was over. Because visibility had saved her. Because the fire had tried to destroy her and had instead forged her into something stronger, something useful, something that could teach other people how to be strong too. Walter squeezed her hand once and let go. Same time next Tuesday. Same time next Tuesday. He left exact change and walked out into the January morning, a 68-year-old Marine who'd spent 50 years trying to forgive himself and had finally learned that forgiveness wasn't the point. Service was the point. Showing up was the point. Standing up was the point. Elena poured more coffee and cleared more plates and lived another ordinary day that was extraordinary because she was present for it, because she'd stopped hiding, because she'd learned that strength isn't spotless skin, it's what you carry after the fire and who you stand up for when the room goes quiet. And every time she looked at her scars, she didn't see damage anymore. She saw proof. Proof that courage is real. Proof that sacrifice matters. Proof that one person standing up can change everything. Proof that the fire doesn't get to win. She does.